And then, without any further ado, I would perhaps invite María Máñez Costa. María? Yeah, brilliant.
So I hope you can hear me well. So today, I'm going to try to talk to you about one question that we are posing to ourselves in the Climate Borough project, and this is how to create innovative procurement processes. Since this project, it's about innovation for financing, nature-based solutions, etc. And you will see that nature-based solutions are one part of our project as well, to some extent. Then I wanted to talk about this twisted link, which can be twisted, can be understood as something which is bad, or it can be understood as a twisted chain, which is a chain that is strong, so it's one part of the chain. And I would like to have this other vision, no? Like it's to have innovative procurement processes, to have the private sector involved. It's a strong chain for the transformation that we should go through. So it's all about public procurement, what I am going to talk to you about. And public procurement is the process, I mean, you know, by which governments and state-owned companies purchase goods and services from the private sector. The financial volume is impressive. We are talking about 12% of national GDP and around 29% of the total government expenditures in OECD countries. This is around 6 trillion euros per year. But at the same time, public procurement is emitting, or calculations say that they are emitting around 15% of global greenhouse gases emissions. And this is 7.5 billion tons per year. To put you just in comparison, this is around 7 to 8 times what the aviation sector produces per year. So we have a part of society, which is the public sector, that could have the power to reduce emissions heavily. Could. And I will tell you why could. If we look back at the impacts of climate change, and these are numbers and graphs from the US, last year has been recorded as the costliest year for extreme weather events in cities globally. And I'm talking about cities because the Climate Borough project is mostly related to cities. There is an increase. On the one side, you can see an increase in the number of events and an increase in, of course, in expenditures. So, and if you look at the different years, 21 was also the costliest year. So we're having the costliest years that go up and up and up. Yet, nature-based solutions in the different topologies that we find around, green and blue nature-based solutions that benefit from ecosystem functions, have a lot of potential to become, Johnson, who I was just presenting, to transform cities in carbon sinks as well, but also to support the adaptation of cities. So according to the United Nations Global Compact, nature-based solutions have the potential to provide a third of climate change mitigation needs to stay under 2 degrees. So we have a lot of potential there. Nowadays, actually half, in Europe at least, half of the adaptation and mitigation measures in cities are already NBS, which in most of cases, because they are from the private sector, they have gone through a procurement process. So there is a lot of power in between. We put nature-based solutions in place. They have to be open calls for people to implement them, etc. So there is a lot of power there. And additionally, it is said that the market potential for nature-based solutions in this case could generate around $800 billion in annual revenues by 2050. And creating a market insurance, a new insurance market of about 1.3 billion globally. So numbers are exploding in this combination of public procurement, insurance, and nature-based solutions. And I was part of a big report on national determined contributions looking at how countries declare, and around 84% of reported NDCs are already NBS. So it's quite a lot. A couple of years ago, we tried to put all of this in a graph, and we call this the sustainable flywheel And it's the opportunities that are framed by this is a kind of trying to model the possibility of the insurance and reinsurance company to be part of the process of implementing NVS. So if we're back in here, when you assess, you see, yes. So when you are assessing climate change, usually you have two possibilities. One, you look at the increase in hazards, and the other one, you look at the degradation of ecosystems. Doesn't matter which one of those you're looking at, you're looking in general terms to an increase of the damage caused. This in turn usually affects the affordability of insurances, because the higher the costs go, then the higher the premiums usually might go, in which cases the insurance companies will, back in here, we assess the risk again. And if we are implementing nature-based solutions, they will start looking at how much these nature-based solutions are actually reducing the risk, how much is the risk redistribution in this case, and they will also look at the co-benefits. And doing so, the affordability of insurance might increase. Hopefully that was the idea that we have. So this improved knowledge about the co-benefits and improved knowledge about the reduction of the risk by nature-based solutions might increase the affordability and the premiums and the insurability of the risk. So the argument that we propose, taking also this work into account, was the insurance values of nature is recognized. We have been talking about it yesterday and today and in your meetings everywhere, but it's not prescribed in procurement process. It's not part of that. The reinsurance companies is interested in quantifying this value with the aim of reducing the cost of damage and supporting green transitions, yet also not part of procurement processes. And additionally, insurance companies have their own sustainable procurement process in place, like the big players have already kind of a way of procuring their goods to promote sustainability. So could we try to bring all of these pieces of the puzzle together in a way? In the middle of our flywheel, you have like spaces in which this could happen. So we have these three pillars of the public climate investments. We have the stakeholders being the main one, in this case, the states, and we have the possible funds that are around. So this is a space in which insurance companies as institutional investors could be committed to support more the green transition and also support the greening up of public procurement. And I know that you might be aware that there are a lot of processes of already green procurement and sustainable procurement, and they have many, many different names, but the real implementation of those is very limited. And we are publishing a paper just right now in which we did a review of the implementation of this kind of processes. So when it comes to financing NVS, they are primarily reliant on public budgets and grants. Again, all of those goes through a procurement process. Private sector investments remain low. We have been talking about it in the last couple of days. The innovation of financial instruments is not there yet. And insurance can but play a crucial role by bringing up the procurement process and by helping mitigate associated risk and encouraging this way private investments on the other side. When it comes to the public procurement of nature-based solutions, the problem that we are facing remains limited. This due to the, mostly that the strategic purchase of goods and services that integrate natural processes, it's still in its infancy, you could say. Why? The challenges that we are facing is the lack of standardized methods. This has been also mentioned yesterday. So there is a difficulty in assessing the long-term benefits and cost of nature-based solutions compared to traditional solutions. The return periods for a gray infrastructure are easy to calculate, or we are used to it. In the case of nature-based solutions, it's different. Then we have a big problem in terms of regulatory and governance issues. So the procurement processes that we have in place are not well suited for the flexible and adaptive nature of nature-based solutions. And then a very important part is a knowledge and capacity gap. So there is limited awareness by public procurers about the needs for nature-based solutions and everything that implies, including co-benefits, etc., etc. So moving forward, we want to have innovative public procurement processes in place that allow for the integration of nature-based solutions in the case of our project for transforming cities in carbon sinks. We need to develop standardized metrics and evaluations, and this is what we have started doing. Of course, we need to foster public-private partnerships that are not there yet or in very limited numbers. If we want to make a change in the process, we need to promote the policy reform that is related to the public procurement processes that we are facing in Europe, and I imagine all around the world, and increase the capacity of the public authorities to be able to put in place these kind of processes and to be able as well to follow criteria that will support the greening up of the procurement. Our proposal is that we are creating a climate proofing of public procurement. This is a work in progress, and this is why I am showing this to you, because it will be very interesting for us to get additional ideas from other projects, other minds, and a kind of, when you're in a project, you end up inbreeding ideas. So that's from my side. Thank you. And if you have questions or suggestions for us, I will be happy to get your emails. And this is just a paper on the sustainable framework.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you, Maria. That was excellent. And we definitely would like to explore the collaboration between your project and NATURANCE. We can take these ideas to the innovation laboratory and see how it works. Brilliant. So, Maria, you are not out of the hook. So later on, after the short presentation, I will invite you here for the question and answer session. But in the meantime, I would like to invite Ingrid Kaltenegger, and she's going to speak about a sister project to NATURANCE, Invest for Nature. And yeah, Ingrid, we are looking forward to your talk.
Yeah, I will do. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and thanks Jaro to invite us for Invest for Nature. And I think it's a perfect link now to Maria's talk, because I took a picture of it, what's lacking in your project, and the standardized evaluation methods, governance issues, but also knowledge and capacity gaps. Within Invest for Nature, we try to fill those gaps a little bit. What is Invest for Nature about? It's maybe one step before we go into insurance, is about promoting investments in NBS and accelerating the market uptake by gaining a better understanding of the economic performance of nature-based solutions and considering climate mitigation and risk reductions. It's also very important for insurance. Just some key dates. It's a 4-year project, Horizon Europe. We have 15 partners from 11 countries. And what I hope is quite interesting for you, we have 5 living labs in 5 different countries throughout Europe. So these are our partners, research institutions, living labs, and we also put a very big focus on stakeholder engagement and also toolbox development. Yeah, I don't want to go into detail, because we decided for our Invest for Nature project also to take the nature-based solution definition from IUCN. What is the challenge for our project? It's well known that, I think we can agree that nature-based solutions can be seen as a powerful tool and measure to address the problems of Earth biodiversity and human well-being being threatened. But what we also know, and has been discussed yesterday, that most nature-based solutions are still publicly funded, that the full economic and societal benefits of nature-based solutions are still not on the table and not well understood. And many nature-based solution initiatives are implemented only in a small scale or pilot projects. So we come in. What we aim for within Invest for Nature is to develop a deeper understanding on how those nature-based solutions can perform economically and financially, and taking also into account the role in mitigating climate risks. So that's also the link again to insurance then. And our aim is also to encourage increased adaptation and investment in those nature-based solutions, and also to speed up the acceptance in the market, or before that, to make that possible. We have those 5 living labs, and we are focusing there, or we try to have a broad range on urban, coastal, mountainous, forests, agriculture, and water management contexts with those living labs. We also have a look at the methodologies related to nature-based solution valuation to assess the economic performance. And then that's the point we are now, the mapping of the motivations, needs, and hurdles of the living labs of all different stakeholders involved in the project. And at the moment, we are also to help that, to support that. We are at the moment establishing a collaborative workspace for co-creation with our stakeholders and the living labs, and this might also be interesting for you. We have 4 phases in the project. That also refers back to these knowledge gaps. We have a lot of really good partners in our project that all had different projects, and what we do now is to bring together all this knowledge and develop a framework and methodologies for those NBS, and focusing on valuing the costs and the benefits. Understanding the stakeholder needs, also to empower them, to give them a voice, and also to create a market for nature-based solutions. And the last part is then the outreach, also to reach out what's a good opportunity today to other projects, to other stakeholders we at the moment not always know. As I said, we have a focus on those 5 landscapes for nature-based solutions. And how does that look like in the specific living labs? We have a living lab in Norway, which is focusing on the coastal landscape with restoration of kelp forests in the Bay of Oslo in Austria. And I'm happy that my colleague from the living lab there in Tyrol is still here. And if you have any questions, you can ask Sigrid. They have two cases there, on one focusing on a river and the other one of climate resistant forest. In Denmark, we have, it's a nice link between coastal and rural. It's about the regeneration of rural area around Aarhus. In Poland, we are more focusing on the urban landscape with putting up green spaces within the city of Poznan. And in Portugal, it's also about the protection of the coastal area and also the regeneration of river. So preliminary results, we have now put up this framework. We have done a lot of the basic works, putting knowledge together, do some value categories and approaches to assess the nature-based solutions, the analysis of social benefits and the costs of nature-based solutions. So these are all now put into papers and some databases to put like a backbone of our project. We also had a review on existing instruments and mechanisms to close this gap we have also identified, with also a systematic literature review. And now we are really focusing on the stakeholder involvement. So we have finalized the stakeholder mapping, and now this online workspace is under development. It's aiming for 2 different things, I would say. It's a web platform where we can bring together all the different stakeholders, and to create a space where they can co-develop project outputs, and also methodology or whatever comes up in all our living labs. And what we also put up, it's we call it event program, but it's also a training and education program for the living labs and all stakeholders around them. And we would also like to open that up to other projects, other initiatives, so that we can exchange knowledge, experience, whatever. And I'm also happy to have another colleague here, because what we also had yesterday in our discussion, that the private sector is still quite unknown and a black box. So we are focusing also here with surveys to get an insight on what are the needs and the barriers for private investors. So, and another big part of it is our NBS toolbox, which is now started the development. It should be a tool, a very easy to use tool for stakeholders, especially in the living labs, to point down their needs and match them with already existing solutions, or to find new solutions. And we also had a first version ready now, and we are now asking for feedback from our research partners and also the living labs. So we are linking up to other projects. NATURANCE, of course, is our sister project, but also Network Nature Task Force. So we try to get together as much as we can. Go Nature Positive was also mentioned yesterday, and Regreen was one of the projects we have started to work with nature-based solutions. So if you want to be part of Invest for Nature, please sign up on our workspace, subscribe for our newsletter. I've put up a roll-up in the back of the room where you can easily scan the link to our website. Here are my contact details. And to finalize my presentation, I would like to give you a glimpse. Sorry. Sorry. It's the very last slide now. It's our own nature-based solution. So on the right, you see the office building where we are based, Joanneum Research, our institute in Graz. And we have a rooftop gardening, which is at the moment really nice, blooming a lot, etc. So that's our little part within our workspace in the office. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Ingrid, for your presentation and giving us a glimpse into Invest for Nature. And now I would like to invite our next speaker. So from Amigo, please come to the floor, Laura Trentini.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak here or stand there?
It's okay, also here. Can I use this? Yeah.
So if you stay, you don't need this, probably.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. So thank you very much. I'm Laura Trentini and I work for Amigo, which is Italian SME. Thank you. Providing climate services at a global level across different sectors like insurance, agriculture, energy, infrastructure, and aviation. And I'm really excited to be here and to present some results from the PISA project. So I thank Stefano and Jaro from CMCC for inviting us. And in particular, I will discuss the co-creation of climate services that we are developing within the project that regards innovative insurance solutions. You probably heard a bit about this PISA project in these days, but today we will delve a bit into some results of the project. And during this first year of project, and also during these days of festival, we learned that insurance plays really a key role in climate change adaptation, because insurance can help filling this adaptation gap by, for example, encouraging and stimulating insurance users in adopt and invest in adaptation measures. But in Europe, currently, only around a quarter of the total economic losses due to climate-related effects are insured. And in some areas, this percentage is even below 5%. This leads to a significant insurance protection gap that is expected to widen if we don't take countermeasures. But this is where the PISA project steps in. Indeed, the PISA project aims to develop a range of innovative insurance solutions to cover at least 50% of the losses attributable to climate change effects in Europe. And PISA stands indeed for piloting innovative insurance solutions for adaptations. And in this effort, climate services play an important role. In these days, I was asked very often what are climate services, so I will try to briefly explain here. And in Amigo, we like to explain this concept in this way. So if on one side we have the data producers who collect observations and develop very sophisticated and advanced models and climate data. On the other side, we have end users like farmers, for example, but also insurers and other types of stakeholders. But what do they have in common? They need accurate data and sometimes user-friendly data. So they need also timely climate information because they have to manage their activities and their practices effectively. So we aim to bridge the gap between these two components and to translate science into practical solutions. And the key of a successful climate service is the collaboration, the continuous collaboration and cooperation with end users, because we have to ensure to meet their needs effectively. And in PISA project, we are developing a range of climate services across different, they are called pilots. They represent different thematic areas in which we test our solutions and we also explore their scalability. So we have these different areas, and I will start from the one regarding green roofs and nature-based solutions. We talked a lot in these days about this, and at the moment, the goal is to perform a cost-benefit analysis and a risk assessment analysis. And as climate service providers, we would like to integrate into this cost-benefit analysis what we think is a key information, but we are happy to hear suggestions, which is the return period of extreme precipitation events that can be used in the risk assessment and can help insurers to assess, to evaluate the benefits of green roofs as adaptation measure. Then another option is to develop indices for heat island and heat wave assessment, which also can help understanding the effectiveness of green roofs in reducing heat island effects and mitigating the impact of heat waves. In PISA, we are also addressing the soil stability risk in cities. So, for example, there is this phenomenon of clay soil shrinkage, swelling, and it's especially common in France, I would say, but also across all Europe. And currently, there is a lack of understanding on the financial implications of this phenomenon. And also, there is no product available to effectively cover this risk. So what we are doing, we are creating a climate adaptation dashboard to help homeowner insurance holders understand this risk. And in particular, we are addressing the climate hazards that may trigger this phenomenon, such as drought, heat waves, and precipitation reduction. Then we have, of course, food and agriculture. And in this case, there are several perils that are of particular concern for farmers. But for example, we are addressing drought and hail, so convective storms. And we are providing agroclimatic indicators and convective storm indicators that not only help insurance and farmers to better understand climate-related risk, but also can inform the development of parametric insurance, which was proven to be, faster to implement and also easier with the costs. And finally, we have two forestry pilots. One regards forestry insurance, and in particular, windstorms and pest and disease, but also the other one regards wildfire insurance. And in this case, as climate services, we would like to provide seasonal forecasts and climate projections to help forest managers' decision-making. And also, for example, for the first pilot, we are providing wind-related indicators that can feed into index-based insurance. And we are also exploring wildfire-related indicators that will be probably provided through maps, visual interface, and high-resolution data. So I talked about several indices. Maybe these slides are a bit more technical, but it's just to say that we are using both well-known indices for assessing climate risks, like, for example, indices for evaluating drought. One is well-known, is SPI, the Standardized Precipitation Index, which depends on precipitation. The other one, Standardized Precipitation Evaporation Index, includes also evapotranspiration. But we are also developing new indices. So, for example, the Standardized Windstorm Index, which is used not only to map the footprints of windstorm events, but also to predict the severe windstorm events. We have, as I mentioned, we will use Fairweather Index and burn severity indices to estimate fire danger. We will analyze heat wave through, for example, a new developed standardized heat wave index. And also we will analyze convective events through, for example, hail indices and convective severity indices. And as you can see from these tables, these indicators can be used for a wide range of sectors, so they can be applied to different pilots, and this demonstrates their applicability. Okay, but I've almost finished. Yeah, all this is possible thanks to all our 12 partners, and some of them are here. So, for example, Heikki from the Finnish Meteorological Institute that will present right after me, and George, for example, from IBM, Stefano and Jaro from CMCC, Ariane from AXA Climate, and Sami from LocalTapiola. So don't hesitate to reach out and to interact with us. And if you're interested in some insights of the project, please scan the QR code. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was really nice and insightful. So I would like to invite our last keynote speaker today. That's Heikki Tuomenvirta. And he will take us also into the type of insurance difficulties and that are explored in PISA. So Heikki, you have a minute. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, good morning. My name is Heikki Tuomenvirta. I come from the Finnish Meteorological Institute, where I work with climate change impacts, adaptation, climate risks. And what I would like to talk to you about is how PISA project contributes to achieving a wider uptake of new insurance solutions to build climate resilience. And let's go forward. So there will be some repetition, but I will try to skip them because, well, Laura already excellently presented many features of the project. But to simply put it in the whole project into 4 points, the key aims are to help to fill the adaptation gap in Europe, co-develop and pilot new innovative insurance concepts and insurance products, co-design and pilot new climate services. And we also, with our partners and stakeholders, hopefully will be able to monitor and reduce climate risks. And the PISA coordinator is Hilpa Grekov from the Finnish Meteorological Institute. And I'm I'm leading the work effort or the work package, which is largest. It's about piloting. And we have 5 pilots, and here you see photos or news of those 5 adaptation gaps that we are addressing in the pilots. So it's the Portugal with the wildfires, and there is the National Adaptation Plan in Portugal, which lists policies and measures, and our partner AXA Climate, together with the local stakeholders, is finding measures so that they could co-design of insurance solutions to to give incentives. Is that correct English? You understand anyway. Okay, thanks. Solution to increase the adaptation level. And yes, even in France, there are more than 10 million homes facing the risk for soil stability. So the clay soils bring swell effect, but it's much larger, and at least the reinsurance have been taking this issue up, that it's something we should address. But here the approach is more for the homeowners. So we will be developing a web tool to inform the homeowners and the administration of the risk, and we will be starting that in city of Lyon, France. Agriculture is under change due to climate, but for example, due to needs for sustainable food production. So there's a need for new insurance products there. And the pilot has started from Finland, where LocalTapiola did a survey among their customers, their farmers, of their interest in parametric weather insurances. Then we have nature-based solutions, clearly, because we have green roofs, and in Netherlands, the you and colleagues there, and I'm looking George, smiling there happily, that they want to stimulate the adoption of NBS through insurance. So, and they have a insurance company as a stakeholder there. And the final 5th one is about forest insurance development, and it starts with Germany, and again it's AXA that already has insurances there. But how to are they providing sufficient gap to the hazards climate change is introducing? So develop those insurances. Okay, so these are the 5 pilots, and I described you how they have started. So now, what are they aiming for, the 5 pilots? So the green roofs, it's about developing a business model for stimulating the adoption of nature-based solution through insurers in cities, but the focus is on particular solution, green roofs. So the climate adaptation dashboard is to develop a web tool for the homeowners to assess the financial risk for their homes due to this shrink swell clay soil instability. And in agriculture, it's about the weather parametric weather insurance, but also very much about the climate services that Laura described. Forests, so we have already, there's some products, but advanced climate forest insurance starting in Germany, but we would like to see how they could be applied or replicated in Boreal region. Then the wildfires within forest, there is the starting point in a way is the National Adaptation Plan. Find the measures that are well suited to develop innovative insurance instruments, and again seek if there is replicability. Yes, okay. Since we are in nature-based solution conference or festival, I should say these pilots clearly have nature-based solutions included. The others, it's kind of depends on the stakeholders and users, how much they will be related to nature-based solutions. Okay, and I will be guided about the time, I believe. So the pilots have been running roughly 9 months. So the recipe for the loop 1 is like develop a solution, select the adaptation gap, co-develop with users and stakeholders in the region and city of interest with its local socioeconomic contexts. Get feedback, move to loop 2, and then to 3. So learn from the, modify according to the feedback, learn and introduce it to other users, stakeholders, regions, cities, and socioeconomic contexts. And okay, now a lot of information about the pilots, but please have a look at the column which it says regions, cities. So here is our plan, the green roofs. They are developed in the Netherlands, then loop 2 Boreal region, Mediterranean region. We have some candidate cities there. The adaptation dashboards, it will be loop 1 and 2 in Lyon, but then how is this useful for the cities in Europe in general, or some of the cities? The agriculture started in Finland, but Mediterranean climate services will be in focus, but also the wider Europe. Forests starting in Germany, but again, boreal forests in northern part of Europe, and the wildfires in Portugal. But again, if the insurance products would be useful for the whole of Europe. Yes, and so did you got at least a hope, little bit interested? Would you like to participate? Would you like to contribute? It's the localized piloting where you can, in loops 2 and 3, participate, and here are hopefully some interesting keywords for you. Or if you are not interested in piloting, the PISA project has an overall objectives like engage budgeting authorities, promote wider adoption of insurance solution, activate resilience dialogue. And yes, Laura already mentions here, but here's really a list, and I have a permission so that I can show these names, so you may contact them and ask about the PISA project. But so Stefano and Jaroslav from CMCC, Laura, Amigo, Ariane Kaploon. Is Ariane here today? Yes, good. From AXA Climate, George from Amsterdam, Vrije University, and Sami from LocalTapiola. And if you don't have time or chance to discuss with them, now I will hopefully say something to spend time so that now you can take up your phone and scan the code, or, well, it's not very hard to guess where you can find the blogs, pilots, and PISA newsletter. But we are also visible in LinkedIn and X. So I think I stop here, and of course you can contact me.
Thank you, Heikki. I would now like to invite Heikki. Heikki, please take a seat here, and also the other speakers. Please join me here in the panel. So we have time for a round of questions. I would like somebody to help me with the microphone. Right. So we invite a reflection question to all speakers this morning. And whatever, you might either ask question to all of them, you might ask question to some of them, or you might simply reflect about what you have heard. So yeah, the floor is open now. Is somebody interested in asking questions? Joan, yeah, Joan is the first. Let's take 2 more questions afterwards. So, yeah, start. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thanks to all of you. This has been really interesting. I've been taking notes. I guess I would really be interested in interacting more with all of you, and especially the PISA people, which I completely applaud your efforts to see how we can link insurance with reducing risks and also with nature-based solutions. That's exactly our agenda. So I'm just really excited to see that. There's 2 things that we've been thinking a lot about, and I wonder if you have on this. One is, you kind of presented it. We want to close the insurance gap, increase it to 50%. I wonder if we always need to have insurance. If our goal should be closing the insurance gap. And I'll just give you one example. You did green roofs. About 40 years ago, I joined up with 10 families and we built apartments, well, a kind of project with wood and with green roofs. And over these 40 years, we've had leaks in the plastic underfloating for the green roofs, but we've managed to pay for that easily with, our monthly, payments and so on. It's been an expense, but, something we could pool ourselves and afford, sort of self-insurance. And if we had bought insurance, we would have paid more than the expected losses. And I think everyone should appreciate that, sometimes quite a bit more. So, I think, just closing the insurance gap, I think it's I wouldn't set that ourselves. I'm thinking about that too, because we've also been sort of challenged to close the wildfire gap. Who really needs insurance? And I guess there was a second comment, but now I've kind of forgotten what it was. So I'll just let somebody else talk.
Thank you very much, Joan. Brilliant. Do we have other comment or question? Yes, please, over here.
Thank you. Laszlo Pinter. Very interesting presentations. My question is how you take into account, or how you think you could take into account the inherent uncertainty in climate projections. As we know from other work, there's a great deal of difference between going from RCP 2.5 all the way to 8.5, let alone what kind of sort of SSPs we choose. And they can have material consequences for scaling some of the sort of the adaptation measures. So that's basically my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Is there any more question or comments? Yeah, over there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you've tracked any of the prices at all, like if you've checked with insurers what kind of prices they would quote for that. Because sometimes, they'll always say, if the premium's high enough, we'll cover it. And so for flood, we track what the prices are in terms of people, the mass market, people at high flood risk, and people with flood claims. And when our scheme started, we tracked it from the beginning. So you can kind of see the market penetration and the prices start to shift. But I'm just wondering if, while there is this gap, if you've gone to any of the, if any insurers have said, yeah, we would do it, but it would cost you this much, to get a sense of what that, not just coverage gap, but price differential, price gap is.
Fantastic. So we have 3 questions. I don't see any more hands. I'll recap for you. John asked, do we really need to think only in terms of insurance? So, is it too much, put on the insurance side? Lars said, how do you account for uncertainty? And the last question was about do we track also, do we look into what kind of pricing the insurance companies would propose, and do we keep a record of them? So you might pick up one of those questions. You might try to answer all of them if you wish so, but please be concise. 1 minute answer per each.
Maybe I can try to answer your questions about the uncertainty, since we are working a lot with the climate output. So in particular, Amigo is working with the seasonal forecasts and climate projections, with which of course are affected by an uncertainty. So I would like to specify that when doing our analysis, so when providing our services, first of all, we don't take the raw output of the climate models, but we process this data and we ensure that we correct them. So for example, we developed a bias correction method that accounts for extreme events. So first of all, we correct this data. Then we also improve the resolution. So I think this is already a good enhancement. But then there are different ways to take into account the uncertainty. So, seasonal forecasts come with an ensemble of members. So with this, you can show the uncertainty, and depending on the users, you can provide the uncertainty in different ways. And regarding climate projections, for example, you can build an ensemble, so a multi-model ensemble, and collect different models. So this is how we usually take into account the uncertainty.
Thank you, Laura. Heikki?
Okay, thank you. Continuing the uncertainty, of course, there's the upper bound, and then we come to the mitigation issues. And of course, it's the reinsurance companies have expressing very loudly about their concern, and they try to be active funding and advancing mitigation. So that's really, how would I say, going back to forward to the another questions that insurance is, we are not trying to fill the whole adaptation gap just with insurance. There are measures, and the insurances can also incentivize, give incentives. Maybe I've learned to say that now. That people or companies would do measures that really reduce the physical risk or economic risk or whatever. So the answer to question, is it always necessary to have insurance? No, it's not always necessary to have insurance. And about the prices, now I give a sort of, so my background is in atmospheric sciences. So I'll say, how would I say, my opinion rather than any educating. So the high flood and the pricing and so on. So what I've heard, the discussion in our project is like, okay, there's the private insurance market, and it can go to, there's a, I don't know, there's a level with pricing, it can go from here to there, but there are truly natural catastrophes, and the government probably needs to, or hopefully, step up when something happens. But I think more generally related to adaptation, it would be good to know what is the level that the insurance companies can cover and where the government comes in. Okay, that was my 1 minute, I believe.
Thank you. Maria?
Well, I think I cannot say much about the questions that have been posed. I can just refer to some work that we did in the past on weather insurance indexes that could be retaken, because I have sometimes the feeling I was involved in in one of the first projects that was financed regarding nature-based solutions and insurance. It was the NAYAT project, finished like 3-4 years ago. And we have been producing things, and I don't see them flowing into the discussion. So maybe we need to revisit what has been done with these first projects on nature-based solutions and insurances, and take some of those, because we work there also with weather-related insurances.
Thank you. And Ingrid, would you like to reply?
I think that I'm like a little bit outside of this discussion because we are not focusing on insurance yet. We are trying to take the step before. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I remind you, right, Linda, so there's PISA project. This is mission adaptation project. So part of this infrastructure put in place in order to help the regions and cities to advance the adaptation. Then we have climate laboro, right, project looking into procurement. In my personal opinion, the procurement and insurance might be nicely connected. I think we will talk about that. I can imagine a model of cities developing the fully fledged climate risk assessment and putting it to the insurers in form of public procurement. This is our risk, make us an offer, right? And for the coverage, for some recovery speed and so on. So I think there's a huge potential to combine those. And then Invest for Nature, that is looking into different instruments, including insurance, but not only, investment into nature-based solution. So my question, very last question to all of you is, how do you think we can work together in a more closer way? So we can organize events, workshops, webinars, but do you see any other potential that we could do? Naturance with your project, your initiatives, and so on. You might start.
If I may start. Yeah, I think events like this are great opportunity. And I would also like to remind you, I've said in my presentation, we are putting up at the moment a workspace. So that's open for all of you. And it's being set up at the moment. So it will be working maybe in a few weeks. So please have a look at our website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's an interesting question. The Climate Bureau project is from the climate neutrality mission.
Right.
So, and it's the 8 of the cities. So some of our cities are mission cities for climate neutrality. But for us, climate neutrality implies both adaptation and mitigation efforts. So it cannot be detached, no? So it will be very interesting to mix up these two communities that usually do not meet, because when you have clusters organized by the Commission, they are adaptation or mitigation. So I think it's time to bring them all together, because I think we have a lot to learn from each other. And I mean, the procurement process that we are putting in place is now ongoing. So actually, there are, for 8 cities, people sending their bids. So, and a official procurement process from the Commission has been implemented. So there is money flowing to small and medium enterprises to support the cities in their efforts to become climate neutral. So it's,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
It will be interesting.
Yes, thank you. So commenting your comment on the question. So yes, of course, the matter, mitigation and adaptation, there's clear links, synergies, and not always find the optimal solutions to satisfy both. So naturally, that would be like the problem or challenge addressing at the FM project where it's a carbon sequestration project for forests. So from wildfire point of view, it's adding fuel.
Sure. No,
So
yes.
there's an issue.
But where do you see the potential for collaborating better across the project?
Yes, so I certainly issues like that, there's the point that especially because in your project you have excellent networks with the cities and stakeholders and regions and have the labs and so on. So there is already, I don't know, is it cooperation if we utilize your networks? But you are allowed to utilize ours.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Yeah, so of course, events like this are a great opportunity, and we should also keep in touch about other conferences, maybe that regard topics that we have in common between the
Yep.
different projects. And I take the opportunity to say that one milestone that we have in Pisa is to organize a meeting with Klima projects. So maybe if someone is interested from the NATURANCE or the other projects, we will keep in touch definitely. And so, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Thank you very much. Please join me for thanking our speakers. Thank you very much. So I think what we are trying to do to get away of the project and concentrate on creating the community for mutually beneficial exchange of knowledge, experiences, and so on. So the formal structure of the project do not have so much meaning for you. This is why in this festival, I mean, the project have not been in the forefront. But what we wanted to gather your attention to is what we can do, how we can help to, steer the flow of investment into nature positive economy and activities. Brilliant. Now, we have been talking about, right, it would be nice to increase the financial flow. It would be nice to include insurance and tap into the potential of insurance for what we attack. The next panel is going to reflect on what the insurers think about what we have been saying and what we have been doing here. So I would like to invite our colleagues representing insurance sectors. That's Alessandro, Sami, Daniela, Lena, and Vylon. And I hope Rebecca is also connected. Is she connected? No, she's not. Right. Unfortunately, Rebecca Lee from ABI. You are here. Right, Rebecca, you are here. Come, please join us. Now, then I was misinformed. I apologize for that. So the scope of this panel is to give you the floor. You have been listening to the different inspirational talks. You have been listening to the presentation. And from your point of view, any remark, any reflection, what do you think? Does it work? Does it not? And what is needed in order to make it work? So any reflection from your side, right, as a reaction to the first day of full immersion into interesting discussion and the expectation that we have on insurance. So shall we start with you, Rebecca?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. So I'm Rebecca Lee. I'm from the Association of British Insurers. So we represent most of the largest UK general insurers and also long-term savings providers, so pension funds and annuity capital providers. To me, the thing that's been most interesting in this festival, I mean, it all has been interesting, but the most interesting thing to me is how we finance all of these nature-based solutions. And we often get approached as the Trade Association for Insurers saying, why can't general insurers provide the capital to invest in flood defences, particularly nature-based solutions, given that so flooding's the biggest risk that we face in the UK. And there are a number of problems with that. Firstly, insurance is done on a yearly basis, so there's no guarantee the returns will be seen within a year. It's a very competitive market, so that means that there's no guarantee your investment return won't then be captured by a competitor. And then also the lack of data, so convincing customers of a counterfactual that your bills would have been even higher had they not invested, particularly in a cost of living crisis, is incredibly, incredibly difficult. So that kind of brings us to the natural conclusion that there needs to be some form of collaboration, either in the entirety of the general insurance sector or some blended finance techniques with public sector, which I think we've been speaking about today. So that's actually my area, that is my day job. So that also takes me to the other side of our membership, so long-term savings providers, particularly annuity capital providers. Yesterday, someone mentioned Solvency II reform, which in the UK, post-Brexit, we've actually already been through that process. So on the 31st of December, Solvency II in the UK will be transformed into Solvency UK. And for us, one of the key things is that it has widened out the eligibility of assets which insurers can invest in. under something that's called the matching adjustment portfolio, which is essentially a really economically efficient way for insurers and annuity capital providers to invest. Whereas previously it was easier to invest in a coal mining company than it was a wind farm. That balance has been slightly shifted, but that's not to say that there's lots of funding which can immediately be put into nature-based solutions. And I say this as a trade body, which we collectively made a pledge when we were lobbying the UK government to make these changes, that we as a sector would invest £100 billion worth of our money into UK productive assets over 10 years. So we're now in a situation where government's coming knocking and we need to provide that money, otherwise we're going to be very much told off. But the problem is, so annuity capital investments really want long dated, long duration assets, which in theory is well suited to nature-based solutions. And the flip side of that is that they don't require massive returns, but they do require highly predictable returns, which is where we run into the problems with this investment, given that they're looking for investment grade propositions. And that is really hard to come by, as everyone here will know, for nature-based solutions, unless there is some form of government partnership to de-risk that investment, which would then allow private investment to crowd in. Whereas currently we've got a lot of capital which is chasing after far too few opportunities to invest in sustainable projects. Instead, it's easier for them to just invest in sort of vanilla gilts. So for me, the thing which is of most interest is the proper position of how we can design models, particularly in blended finance, to try and make this possible for us as a private sector to invest in nature-based solutions, which would then also create a virtuous circle of there being more data, which would then allow government support to step back and whole new asset classes to be created. Sorry, that was probably quite long.
Splendid. Thank you very much. Vylon, what is your take on?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, yesterday was very inspiring, and I think today the talks as well. I'm Vylon from the Dutch Association of Insurers. I'm a policy advisor on climate change. On the underwriting side, actually. So I talked to my investment colleague before. He said, well, insurers mostly invest in mitigation, not in adaptation directly, but there are some things that we can do. So we can invest in government bonds, for instance, like green bonds or blue bonds. Therefore, you invest indirectly in nature-based solutions. And on the other side of the balance sheet, in the underwriting side, insurers can stimulate, of course, nature-based solutions through their products. And this can be done also with large corporates, for instance. So they have like larger areas, so it can be more valuable there. And lastly, what I want to add is, even though the NATURANCE is about insurers, I sometimes miss like the perspective from banks as well. So yesterday from the EIB was a very interesting addition. And in the Netherlands, we tried to incorporate the whole financial sector within climate adaptation discussion. So we formed a working group on climate adaptation, basically under the Dutch Central Bank, the DNB. And there we jointly discussed these topics because we see that it touches every single part of the financial sector, but also the government. And we see that there are different languages across. So it's rather challenging actually to address these topics, but we do see that we land on some things which we didn't know before, which we can tackle now to make the Netherlands more climate resilient in a broader sense. So we do also see that it lands now in politics because we stand stronger together, because we can form more of a coalition around climate adaptation towards the Dutch government or towards the Dutch politics now. So we see that that's changing. Yeah, and there are differences, of course. So there were also banks that said to me, like, okay, climate adaptation is not really an issue for us, and it only becomes an issue for us when it becomes uninsurable, because then we are like firstly at risk. So there are different opinions there, but there are also banks that say, okay, we need to do something with like climate resilient building, for instance. Climate resilient, like repairing, retrofitting, and insurance companies can play a huge role in that as well. So it's a joint challenge, and I think that's also the title of this part of the day. to have like more of the community together. I think a great addition to that would also be to add like banks and pension funds and their perspectives to the whole discussion.
Thank you very much. Sami, what is your take?
Thank you. I have found these days really inspiring. Thank you for the opportunity to participate. Yes, my name is Sami Myyrä and I work for LocalTapiola. I work in a group which is leading our marketing organization. We have 19 local companies throughout Finland, and yes, my work is to lead our agricultural sales. So I know how this sales organization works in insurance industry. And I have just two things to raise. My first thing is that we all agree that these natural-based solutions have benefits for society in large. But how to put best foot forward in insurance companies? And I think there are 2 points. First point is that we have to implement these natural-based solutions to our strategy papers, but those are just words. To get real-life implementation, we need to implement these natural-based solutions to our scorecards. We have these scorecards for annual basis and for monthly basis, and we have made goals, sale goals, and we have to fulfill all these goals. It's really practical. And if there are something that we could include into our scorecards, then something will happen. And my next point is that we need legal harmonization. We have heard that there are new insurance products which are innovative, but there are legal boundaries which limits our possibilities to apply those insurances. For example, in Finland, it's not legal for us to sell parametric insurances, and that's binding our work. We are inspired about all the possibilities for parametric insurances, but it's not legal for us to sell. Thank you.
This is brilliant. Can you elaborate why is that? What is the reason for not being able?
Yes, we have a 150 years heritage in indemnity insurances. So there always have to be damage,
Right.
which is compensated. And the legislation is based on that.
Thank you. Alessandro.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Alessandro Bonazzi. I'm representing Global Corporate Commercial, that is a division of the Generali group that specialize on non-life product for large corporation worldwide. Our main, I've been very happy to attending the conference, the festival over the last 2 days, and I see a lot of potential for nature-based solution, but it is a topic that needs to be addressed over a large spectrum of angles, right? So we mentioned the investment versus insurance. I think that some of the discussion we had are more kind of related to the investment side, ensuring there is the funding necessary to develop certain initiatives. On the other side, when it comes to the underwriting insurance, then things needs to be put a bit in perspective. Certainly, what we do is that we provide, let's say, contingent capital. Something goes bad, we are there to support the clients. But to have this to scale up, we needed to embed the consideration regarding nature-based solution in a similar standard as we tackle the other product that we have. So there is a limited amount of possibility to have a special treatment, right? That needs to fit within the risk appetite, and then the discussion becomes also quite technical. That may not be that appealing as an option, but unless there is this integration in the normal way of operating, then it's difficult to reach the scale to provide capital not for one project, but for hundreds of projects. That is the dimension that we need to reach. One point of attention that I think that we all agree that risk mitigation is key, right? And as insurer, we should promote awareness and ensure that our clients put in place the action that could reduce the risk in the first place, and therefore have a benefit also in terms of the cost of the insurance itself. But where we can act very well is the initiative taken by the local company or the insured. So if you act in your own house or your industrial facility, then we can immediately recognize what is the benefit of the action you have taken, maybe against the flood risk or reducing the fire risk, and that would translate into an impact in the premium that we charge. So we can have a very engaged conversation with the client, having people on the ground supporting and providing services in that direction. For some of the nature-based solution that we saw, the scale is a bit different, right? So the action has to be taken more broadly. So maybe it's affecting an entire river basin, or maybe some very vast initiative that then would translate into individual benefit locally for the many people that happen to be insured in that area. Then there is a disconnect between where the cost is borne and where the benefit is felt, right? And to bridge the gap, I think that is where, and we were discussing yesterday, I believe in Marta, a layer of a public-private partnership. So there needs to be somebody in the middle that can provide and contribute to the cost, and also distribute more centrally the benefit in a way that is sustainable. So risk assessment and ensuring that mitigation action are taken is key, but we need to be careful about how to put them in place when the scale of the nature-based solution is quite wide. Then a last point, again, on the scalability of the solution. Certainly, if those are profitable solution, scale certainly will be there. We see also a lot of attention coming in Europe about the definition of taxonomy, because also that is a way to make evident the role of the insurer with respect to the society. And I think that by having a taxonomy of the nature-based solution, we can demonstrate our willingness to operate in this direction and facilitate the scaling up of the initiative within our own organization. So again, I'm closing here. A lot of interesting topic, and really thankful to be here with you over this festival.
Thank you, Alessandro. And Daniela.
Morning, everyone. Dan Fairweather from Howden. So we're risk consultants and insurance brokers, so not insurers. I work in the climate risk and resilience team, heading up the food systems and biodiversity. And yeah, I was just trying to sort of reflect on some of the conversations we were having yesterday. And I guess it broadly falls into, I guess, two categories. One is around sort of the challenges of insurance and challenges within the insurance sector, and then probably come on to some opportunities. And I guess probably my first comment would be, I guess, don't expect too much from insurance. I mean, I think there's an expectation that insurance is actually going to be your risk management in any of these projects. And actually, insurers are risk responsive. And as we've heard, they can take a very small, basically a very short view on risk, typically working on 12-month cycles. And if we start looking at some of these nature-based products or projects, you're looking at more like the sort of mortgage markets where it's 25 to 30 years. So you really need to make sure you embed risk management into any of your decision-making. I guess another issue is going to be capacity. You know, we've all been told how much money it's going to take into, you know, to invest in climate smart technology and nature-based solutions. And we're talking billions, if not trillions. And so that's going to be a real challenge for the insurance market, especially in something that is so new and something that the insurance market needs to react to really quite quickly. So I think there needs to be some sort of reality checks around sort of what they're able to do, timescales, and how much they're going to be able to support. But that doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom. There's some real opportunities there for the insurance sector to help deliver and develop some of these projects really quickly. I mean, we've seen this in the carbon capture and storage sector, some of the carbon projects, because a lot of the discussions we're having with the banks is that saying, we've got all this money, we want to invest in projects. And then you have all the project owners and say, we've got all these projects, but we're too small for the banks, or we don't fit that risk profile. So I think there's a real sort of role for insurance to help develop and mature those projects, or help de-risk them so that they become bankable. And then you can start sort of really crowding them together and making them an asset class, which banks who have got billions to invest in this area, the opportunity to really help support. Because realistically, it's easy to get $100,000 or euros, whatever. It's quite easy to get 10 million euros or dollars, but it's that sort of missing middle which most projects at this stage really fall into. There's potentially a role for things like mutualized risk pools, whereby where you collectively get together and provide some sort of premium pool to pay for some of these, what insurance will see as real R&D risks. So potentially looking at how you might be able to potentially structure some of that lower layer and then protect through reinsurance and insurance. That could be one solution. But I think by and large, the insurance sector is really keen to engage in this area, and there will be capacity and there will be people who will be willing to sit down and talk through, you know, the requirements of some of these projects. And I think actually the insurance products are probably there already. They just need a little bit of evolution. You know, if you start looking at some of the environmental liability products that are already there, you know, that they could be sort of evolved to really help support nature-based solutions. But again, it's going to be a case of, you know, length of time required for those policies to be in place, you know, 5-10 years minimum. But I think reading the waters in London, at least, there's definitely an openness to discuss and understand risk and help develop this sort of asset class.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you. Now looking at the audience, whether there would be 1, 2, 3 quick question reactions. So let's start first, and then we have Svenja in the back.
Great, thank you. Speaking of reflections, I think it's quite interesting to view in Europe anno 2024, interesting under air quotes, that we still talk about these lines of demarcation that are called borders. And the nature doesn't recognize these borders, just to be clear. So to what degree do you find that to possibly be a contradiction or a constraint? And if so, how do we get past it?
Brilliant. Thank you. Let's take also the comment from Svenja before turning back to the panelists.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the panel discussion and the presentations. Just a sort of reflection, and I think it's always happens when we discuss insurance. I think we need to be very careful to differentiate between what it is that we're actually, you know, wanting to do with insurance. So, I mean, I usually say, well, if you want to close the protection gap, it's very easy. Just set up a mandatory insurance scheme, government can run it, and there you go. And that's possible, and it is being done. I think we just need to be very clear that insurance is itself is an instrument. And then it can be done by the government or by the industry. And then it can be done in different ways. And the different ways can have an influence on how that sort of might interact with adaptation. I think it's really important because suddenly when, you know, this is where in my experience, often there's also misunderstanding of what the industry then can do versus what an instrument can do. Because what we haven't really discussed is also the demand side for this. And I think that would be really interesting to get your reflection, because in my experience, there are also new developments. I'm involved in putting together new covers, and then the demand isn't there. So I think let's maybe bring up the demand as well.
Fantastic. So we have two very interesting topics to reflect on. So the first one is the borders. So the borders, nature without borders, insurance, how to respond to that. And the second one, you know, rephrasing the question, is there anything that you would like to see happening, right? The one scheme that you think there's a huge potential, but you don't see any demand from those that might be protected. So, or what do you do in terms of demand management in your organization or in your sector? And you can, you know, simply in whatever order. Who would like to be first? Daniel, is it you would? Yeah.
I was just passing the microphone, but anyway, I'll try for this one. So if we talk about the demand side, actually, you're right. You know, if insurers won't respond to request for an insurance product unless there is real demand, and actually speaking to the banks and governments, you very quickly understand what their drivers are and what types of insurance products they want. They don't necessarily want products that respond to physical climate risk. A lot of it has got to do with sort of warranties or liability, that sort of thing, because a lot of that risk they expect the project owner and developer to have risk managed out. What you expect, you know, what you want insurance to do is respond to the unexpected risk. So if it's an expected risk, you can't insure it. So I think speaking to the banks, I think is really key. Governments less so, because obviously they are, you know, usually have pretty deep pockets, not always. But anyway, I'll let someone else take that question.
Maybe just a comment on this side. I believe that speaking about new products, there is a lot of difficulties, and I agree that as an insurer, we are not typically there to stimulate the demand side. So there is demand, that is what we were discussing with Jaro yesterday, and we are there to react and provide services to the demand. So we are not actively build the awareness that is, I think, is coming from initiative like the NATURANCE in a way. When we tackle new product, I believe that the appeal of parametric, that sometimes is not the most evident, is that by having a very clear definition of what is the payout structure, you have less surprises that can happen than in a normal product. So if you start tackling a complex liability product that with unknown development times, and you don't know where the liability will actually materialize, can happen in 1 year, 5 year, 20 years time. That is making it for a very complex development, and is a type of risk that is difficult to underwrite on one side, and is also difficult to retrocede in a way. So there's a limited capacity you can provide in this space. If you focus on parametric solution by having a clear definition and clearly providing transparency of what is going to be the time also when the loss could eventually materialize, you have something that is much more agile, and you can apply it to a much broader set of risks. So the beauty of parametric is that by confining very clearly even when the loss can happen, that is much easier to manage from a balance sheet perspective, and then from a retrocession perspective that is making for a bigger capacity. But again, we are not that good in promoting demand side, so I think that is where collaboration is needed, and certainly the role of the government institution is key to provide a direction and stimulate demand that otherwise may be lagging behind.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, maybe I could comment on demand. We are all the time studying the demand side, and we know that our farmers have recognized the climate change and extreme weather events have increased. So there is a demand, and we are all the time studying that. But yeah, we are feeling the pressure. I could say that.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's so it's slightly different, but as an association, your role is also to signal things that happen in society and to give that back to different insurance companies, for instance, or the members of the association. So what we did see was, for instance, that there were some people in the Netherlands living in unbanked areas, so they were not covered by flood insurance, but they were relatively water safe in that way. So what we could do then is also investigate, let others investigate and present that research to our members to say, okay, this might be an option for you. And of course, for insurance companies, it's always their own decision to cover things or not, and to put things in their products that are then tailored to these situations. But it's also a big signaling role that you have as an association towards your members. And to comment on the border question, we do collaborate a lot more with other countries now as well. So we have like associations that are within Europe, like Insurance Europe, global organizations like Shafia, where we discuss the same problems. In most countries, you have similar problems around this. So this is also knowledge sharing, not only within our community, but also within insurance communities worldwide, and that also helps to tackle these issues. And then you also see that these borders become more vague instead of that you really keep to the problems that you have in your own country that you want to address.
Thank you. Rebecca?
There you go.
So on the border question, obviously we're, as an association, coming at it from a post-Brexit world. So I think our perspective on the border is actually, it's, the frustration of when you've got divergence in, particularly in regulation and policy, and what that means for insurers that operate cross borders. That creates a whole new sort of industry of reporting requirements, for example. And that definitely sort of is an inhibitor for us. So we do try and keep involved in conversations with Insurance Europe and JIFIA, but that is something which needs a lot more work on. On Svenja's question on the demand side, that's a really good question. I think it comes down to policy questions ultimately of how much risk in the system is government comfortable with, and who do they want ultimately to pay for that risk. In the UK, Jonathan from Flood Re will be able to talk about this a lot more, but we've had the situation where we've decided to come together and reinsure flood risks so that people who are in high risk areas can still be insured. And essentially that's just where you've got the low risk homes subsidizing the high risk homes. But then if you look to the US, you have the case where insurers are pulling out entirely of different states. And so you see there what happens when there is demand for insurance. People really want it. It's just they don't want it at the prices which they're able to provide it at. And that's because the risks are going up and up and up, which sort of circles neatly back to the need for all of these nature-based solutions to try and bring that risk back down into an insurable world. Because otherwise, if these risks keep going up, climate change keeps going the way it looks like it's going, there will be insurance models which become unviable, and where insurers have to just completely back out of the market. And then you'll have to ask questions about state insurance, essentially, and government becoming insurers of the last resort.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for this session, but I invite you, first of all, thank panelists. And then continuing this discussion over the coffee break and over the vodka breaks, discussions. So thank you very much again, and enjoy the coffee break. And thank you to our online audience. We will close now the transmission. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you next time.